That's a pocket watch, and there's a story in the book about a pocket watch that he had when he was a little kid. These were called dollar watches, and he gave me one when I was 5 or 6. I used to love going through his junk drawer, and I'd always find something. What, my mother says, 3? 3. And my grandfather gave it to me. Didn't work. He said, whatever you do, never take more than 3 screws out of the back. So the next morning, I called him and I said, Papa, if you have a couple of hands, I think we can find the rest of the parts and put it back together. He used to tell that story and just laugh. This is an ad from my grandmother Bee's family store in Humboldt, Tennessee. That is a store her father started. It's dated 1908. This is the Evansville Courier from 1912 showing the Titanic. Papa delivered that paper. This is where Papa did his first job in the apparel business. He worked after high school in an overall factory called D.S. Bernstein in Evansville, and he learned apparel manufacturing. All the men were at war, and they let kids and anyone who could work come into the factories. That's a 1919 Essex. If you knew my grandfather, he was big on cars. Drove Chryslers most of his life, and the next thing is a drawing that some kids did that Papa spoke to at Coulter's school, Ebert, when they were in 3rd grade. And I love these drawings that 3rd graders did showing pivotal things in Papa's life. That's the car. Papa's first car was a Model T. He and his brother bought it for 50 bucks, and it went fine going forward, but if it went back, one of the wheels would come off. That is a 1928 Chrysler Roadster, just like, 1926 Chrysler Roadster, which he had number 36 serial number the year they came out. And that's what he and Bee drove from Humboldt to Denver in 1926. These are love letters from 1926. And I had the chance to read these to my grandfather just in his last days, and it was wonderful. I love the stationery. It's just beautiful. It's engraved. And I can't imagine if he used to travel with a typewriter or what, but this is all Southern hotels that he stayed at and wrote my grandmother every day. Now that's Denver in 1930 roughly, and this would be Curtis Street on 16th. And Papa set up a office, and you can barely see it, but there's a sign above that car on the left. Yeah, you got it there. It says Paris Garters, which is a sign he installed at his office. That's the company, the brand that he represented when he moved to Denver and worked at for a number of years. Here's another photograph from the same period. Look at all the people downtown. Coulter noticed that. The streets were packed in those days. Oh, there's a picture from Coulter School where he's in one of the first planes flying from Billings to Denver, and he turns around to the pilot and he says, "Did I have glasses on when I got in?" He stuck his head out the window and lost his glasses. Here's the first catalog. This one's from 1937. There's our first label, which he introduced in the 40s and we used until the 70s, and then I reintroduced in our vintage collection. There's some signage Papa did in the 40s. Again. That's Papa's card from possibly the 40s, and I never knew we were in the car business selling mufflers. And I love this on the back. This is Papa's humor. Can everybody read it? I mean, that's the way the office was like. And that was the tone he set. You know, he was what some people call earthy. Oh, I love these longer pens for longer orders. They say Rockman on them, and they're from the 40s. Now that deer head, any of my generation will remember, because Papa used to tell us the rest of the deer was on the other side of the wall. And we looked plenty of times, never found it. These are ashtrays from the 50s. Oh, that was high tech in the 40s. That was high tech in the 50s. This is a poster I found in our office supply closet. We were clearing it out when we were doing our renovation, and it was lucky I was there because most of the stuff was computer paper from the 60s we didn't need. But that is an actual linen poster that is quite valuable and rare. I've never seen another one. This is the original Woody. Papa had them made. They're leather, and they have walnut heads, and they came with a saddle, and they were made by a guy named Goldstein in Cheyenne. And you know, I showed him it when somebody gave it to me for my birthday. He immediately launched in the whole story from the 50s, which, like, it was last week. Next. These are counter cards that are about 3 feet tall. And in my first book, I had found one in a collection in Costa Mesa, California. And I was really drooling after it. And the guy wouldn't even consider. He said, if I ever sell it, it's yours. Well, we're going through our renovation in '85, and we had to remove some cabinetry in my grandfather's office. And what did I find but a stack of these? Calder, why don't you whiz through them? There was a stack of the original ones. And I couldn't have been more thrilled. Now, those horns have a story. My grandfather, Calder, you have to hit the pause. You're okay. Those horns are about 6 feet long, and my grandfather never missed a chance to tell this story because my father went to work for the company, and he was in Oklahoma, and he insisted on selling a guy beaded belts, which my grandfather knew the man would never pay, but he wanted to teach my father a lesson, which he was more than willing to do any chance he got. So 6 months later, Papa says to Dad, Jack, you have to go collect that money. It was 35 bucks, by the way. And Dad goes in the store, and Papa says to him, he's not going to want to pay you, so you just pick up anything you can put your arms around and walk out. So Dad's walking out with these horns, and the man says, oh, is it a trade then? So, I mean, there's a long story that my aunt even got involved with them on a train coming home from Kansas City. So, I mean, it was no easy feat to get them back to Denver. That's Dad in the 50s. There's Elvis in 1957 in the movie Love Me Tender wearing a Rockmount shirt. There's the 3 generations. If you can't tell who's who, I'm the one in the middle. 1959. There's Papa in 63. That's the essay in 1975. Looks like the Constitution, it's so water-stained. That's a poster that Papa very shrewdly asked me to model for in high school, tricking me into getting involved in the business. Next. That was a later poster in the 80s by David Parker, 3 of us. There's 3 of us in the early 90s. Keep going.
That's you.
There's Eric Clapton, and that's a picture his wife took, and he sent me. Next. There's the building in 1909, the year it was built. There's the building after the renovation. In the interior. And I think that is the photos.